So I'm going to talk about organizing the notebook right now. There's a difference I noticed when I shifted from working on my undergraduate degree to working on my graduate degree. When I was working on my undergraduate degree, there's a way I took notes that wasn't quite working for me. And then when I shifted into graduate school, I figured out a way that was a really easy fix to make the notes go a lot more fluidly for me. So let me show you first the way I normally took notes. So I'd take notes from the teacher, class notes, and then I would do my homework on the same. It just continue. There's another part where I finish maybe the last page of homework, and then I take notes again, and do more homework, and then take notes again. The problem with this is when I'm studying for an exam, I have to sort through a whole bunch of nonsense. So I'm doing my notes, I'm studying for my exam, but then I have this stuff that's just distracting me, and it's interfering with my studies. Here's more interference with my studies. Like, I know what 2a dot little squiggly line p means because I've been doing the homework and stuff, but I don't know why that's there or what it's addressing right now. It doesn't do me any good studying for an exam. What would be nice is if I had a continuity that ran from this is my one page of notes, and then it just continues to more notes. In graduate school, I was like, oh, that's an easy fix. All I have to do is, okay, I got my notes in the beginning, so I've divided now my notebook into 3 sections. It's nothing but notes in the beginning. And then in the middle, I have blank pages. And then at the very last page, I work my way from the back forward. That's where I'll take notes that are for like homework and stuff. In this case, it was writing essays, so I needed to take notes on a research paper. And so these were like research paper notes that I was writing. And now, so what I've done then is divided, once again, the notebook into 3 spots. There's the beginning. The first third is where you're taking your notes. Then you leave the middle third completely blank. And then you go to the far end and work backwards, and that's where you're taking your notes. The second thing I realized was I was wasting a lot of time writing notes that could have been condensed. So this is a class on this philosopher named Kant. The word philosophy came up a lot. The word psychology came up a lot. Throughout is a normal word I use all the time because without those come up all the time. And there's these 2 fancy names, noumena and phenomena. These came up all the time in this class about this philosopher Kant. And so what I did was a quick shorthand. So this little squiggly mark, anytime I saw that, that meant philosophy. So while I'm taking my notes, if I need to say philosophy, rather than spend all that time writing out the big word, I just do that squiggly, and now I know, okay, anytime I see that, that's philosophy. When I took a psychology class, that sign was for psychology, and then common ones TO for throughout, BC for because, WO for without. And then I had to make up these 2, signs for myself, that fancy word noumena that we said all the time. Now, rather than writing that word out every time it was said, I could just write that little symbol, and phenomena, I could write that little symbol. So you just make up your symbols that you use, but the problem is you have to be sure to write your key out. So I'd use this first page of your notes to write out the key for your symbols, because when you're going through your notes like 2 weeks later, you'll forget, what did that symbol mean? Now I know what that symbol means. Okay, the final step for note taking. When it comes time to study for the exam, what I recommend doing is, if you're listening to a teacher talk, a lot of times we repeat ourselves. We'll repeat ourselves 7 times. And then the next day we'll forget that we already said something, so we'll repeat ourselves again. And while we're doing that, you're writing your notes down. And so you have in your notes a lot of repetition and a lot of concepts that could be condensed. What I recommend you do is, as you're studying for your exams, you're going to go through all of your notes, and you're going to try and compress those into one single page. And that's going to be your exam study page. And then you're going to write that one single page again. Now you have 2 copies. You have one copy that stays in your notebook, and one copy you tear out and throw it in your back pocket. And whenever you're sitting at like a grocery store line or something, you can pull out that one page and start studying that one page of condensed notes. The value of rewriting those notes again and again. I've read somewhere that like after you've read something about 7 times, it starts to get committed to memory. Well, you've only written it 3 times. You wrote it once the initial time, second for compressing, third for compressing. You're not quite at the 7, but at least you're closer to the 7, and that helps to commit it to memory. So the very act of condensing and consolidating notes helps process it in your mind and helps to commit it to your memory. So that's the third technique I'd recommend. So 3 things altogether. The first one is divide your notebook into 3 sections. You have the first section for notes, the back section for homework, the middle section leave blank. That creates a nice space between the 2 areas. The second piece of advice for that is to write your key for your notes so you know what terms mean what, and then start working on your own personal shorthand that you can use throughout college. And then the third piece of advice is condense all of your notes into one page as you are coming up on exam sections. And then write that page twice, keep one page in your notebook so it'll never be lost, and keep one page in your back pocket so you can use it at a grocery store. All right, take care, everybody. Bye.